Hi, everybody,
Good morning.
and it's great to be together with all of you. And especially, we just want to express our love and appreciation for Jimmy and Maria. Jimmy and Maria, when you've been gone as long as we have,
Almost 10 years this time.
almost 10 years, you really do value friendships that can stand the test of time and distance. And Jimmy and Maria both, you've been such special friends, faithful friends. Of course, always welcoming us here when we come to the Boston area, but also even visiting us on the other side of the ocean in France was really special for us a couple of years ago. But we love you both very much and are so grateful for our friendship and partnership.
And we just also just want to say how much we love your family, your children, all of them, and your grandchildren. I think it's soon to be 11, and all the experience and support emotionally you've given to us as missionaries, being former missionaries yourself, understanding the ministry, understanding family dynamics, living far away. We've been away from two of our children for the last 9+ years, and grateful to have our son Thomas Jean Thomas and his wife Courtney with us in Paris with our grandkids. But truly, you are a great blessing to our lives, and we're just so grateful for your friendship over all these years.
We wanted to talk a little bit about, of course, to the Boston Church at large, and how much the Boston Church means to Carol and I. We have a lot of our personal history in the Boston area. Of course, I went to school here, and Carol got her first job here at Mass General Hospital. And we've just spent the last couple days. We're staying in Cambridge right now, waiting the beginning of the Global Connect Forum. But boy, we just spent all of Tuesday walking down memory lane, and there's so many memories from where Carol and I met for the first time.
We met before we became Christians down around Lansdowne Street, right behind Fenway Park. And it's also walked through the public gardens and up to Beacon Hill, where I lived as a young nurse working at Mass General in pediatrics. And even along Mass Ave there is where I was first met by a sister named Vicki. And she invited me to her women's Bible talk. And John and I at that time were looking for a church. And so I was just so grateful to meet a couple young dynamic women that were looking to go to the Mass General Hospital to visit a brother who was sick there at the time. And that was the beginning, where I became a disciple 3 weeks later, and then John was converted. Of course, he had to move out of my apartment to do that. But we served in Cambridge and Somerville singles ministry back then. And then we went into the full-time ministry. So we walked around Harvard and MIT, being here in Cambridge, where we did campus ministry for several years. And
we took a photo in front of the church there in Harvard Square, where we were married, and then our first apartment together on Trowbridge Street in Cambridge, which was just a special memory. And then different places where we had met disciples along the way, people along the way that became disciples. But just such a great day. The Boston area, the Boston Church means so much to us. And Carol and I are celebrating our 35th wedding anniversary, but you've been such a huge part of that story, our story, and of course, not the least of which is the Boston Church. You've supported us in the ministry, to serve in the ministry in Boston and abroad now for 34 consecutive years.
Right. That's right.
And
Thank you so much.
we're just so grateful to the Boston Church. We feel knit together at a heart level. But we love you all and are so proud, feel so honored that you would entrust us all these years with the work of the ministry.
Yes, you truly are our family from the very beginning of our walk with Christ, and you have supported us, as John said, with all our travels overseas to serve and build churches in Europe. And we're just indebted to you, and we really value and appreciate so much your support and your belief in us all these years. Thank you
Absolutely.
very, very much.
I didn't want to go on further without just saying a word about this special person in my life as
This was not planned.
we're celebrating our 35 years. But Carol is the one who reached out to me for me to become a disciple so many years ago. But she is, without question, the most courageous, dynamic, passionate, capable, tough women of God. She doesn't feel tough sometimes,
No, not always.
but she's. I'm just so proud of you and this journey that we've had all these years together. And we are on the cusp of this 35-year anniversary. But we've had tons of adventures together. But I am who I am mostly because of God using you're the iron that has sharpened my iron all these years. You're the
He
chisel.
sometimes calls me God's little chisel. I'm not sure if
You're
that's
the-
a positive thing.
You're the
always,
chisel
but-
that has absolutely shaped me, molded me all these years. But I love you so much.
I
But
love you, and I couldn't do any of it without my best friend. I love to talk about my husband. There's no one I would rather spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with. It truly is one of the greatest blessings in life, is to be disciples of Jesus, married, and just doing what we can to build up God's kingdom. We make a lot of mistakes, but we make them together.
That's right.
And we learn.
And we wanted to start by just sharing a couple stories that have inspired us, that have encouraged us personally, where they've helped us to see God in ways that sometimes can elude us. But Carol had one story she wanted to share about youth and family ministry. Like a lot of us that had children that were growing up in the church. In 2005, Carol and I entered the youth and family ministry, as most all parents do, at one point in time, and we served along with other parents and their children, and some great teen leader heroes. But we served from 2005 to 2012 in the south side of the Boston Church, the South region at that time, and they've inspired us, and
Yes,
that
they have.
season in our lives really has inspired us. Even to this day, they continue to inspire. What did you want to share?
It was such a hard time if you were around the church back in 2005, and yet it was one of those times where I feel like God really directed us. The church was coming out of a difficult chapter. We were struggling to find faith. But one of the things we all knew in the South region of the Boston Church at that time, and I think throughout the Boston Church, was helping our children to have the best opportunity to find Jesus in their teen years was super important to us. And so all the families, we joined together in our home, and we met every Wednesday. And we had food, and we had fun, and we had the help of young married couples like Sam and Leanne Shaw, and Frank McDonald, who helped served, and Janae, and Dave Mesquita, and others. But it was really just a real family approach, that we would study the Bibles with each other's kids, that they would choose who they would study the Bible with, and that we would just be there for them and just provide an opportunity of love for each one of our our teens at that time to study the Bible. And if I remember right, over those years, we saw about 75 of them become Christians. And from that group of 75 or so disciples, we've seen 9 of them go on the mission field since then. Of course, our own son Thomas is now with us in Paris. Jean Thomas, he was actually born in Paris, with his wife Courtney and our 2 grandchildren. They've been with us for the last 2 years. John Buckles married Rachel Ayas, and they came to Milan about 7 years ago and have been part of the Milan Church of Christ, leading that and doing a great work with the students there.
Fantastic.
And helping us as well with our School of Missions, teaching and training future leaders in Europe. That with Tom and Courtney. And then Frank McDonald, who married Agle, and they were here in the Boston church and are now leading the church in Prague in the Czech Republic, and also help us with our School of Missions. I think of Tristan Sleeper, who on his own, because he had a heart for Europe, went to Spain several times, I believe, to just serve, not being paid staff, and then fell in love with Ida, who's in the Milan church, and they just got married this summer, and they are now in the Milan church serving overseas. And Tristan was a part of our teen ministry back in those days. Blake Moore, if you know Blake, he's quite a spark plug, and he married Olivia Boucher, who was actually born in Paris, and several years ago they decided to come to France to be able to serve and to hopefully one day go out from Paris to help plant a church somewhere in France. But right now they're in Paris with our Young Families Ministry, and they just had a little baby girl named Leonie. Then we have China and Tommy Kruger, and China is the daughter of the Chins, Jane and Steve Chin, sorry.
Jane, go ahead, say it again.
Okay, so we also have Tommy and China Kruger, who were in our teen ministry, and China is the daughter of Steve and Jane Chin, and they were leading the Hong Kong church back in the day, and they asked us if we would allow China to come live with us for a couple of years so she could finish high school. Well, they are in our teen ministry. She met Tommy Kruger, who's now Tom, and they have been living in China, and came back just before COVID hit, and ended up having to stay in Boston for the last year and a half, but are going back as self-supporting missionaries to Taiwan with their daughter, Addie, and we're super proud of them as well. And then there's also Desiree Chin, who is about to leave the Boston area and move to Munich, Germany to serve in the ministry there with the campus students there. She did a year abroad, or half a year abroad, in Zurich, Switzerland, and she as well is going to be serving in the ministry, but so proud of all that the Boston Church has done for so many students. There's others like Colin Urbani, who's been in Munich and was serving in Berlin before from the downtown Boston area, and many, many others. But I just love
such an inspiring
that story.
Such an inspiring story. That's the first of several stories. The next story we'd like to tell is the story of the Parish Church, and maybe you're aware of, but in 2012, Carol and I were invited to join the Paris leadership team, and it's been such an incredible journey for us. The church was about 75 members at that time. They had experienced a really challenging 10-year chapter there, and I think they were just looking for encouragement and faith and some help. They hadn't had supported ministry for all of those 10 years, and it was a courageous group of disciples that
super faithful,
continued to persevere. But it was challenging. It was a challenging situation. But my goodness, we're so proud of the Parish Church and what we've been able to experience together over the last 9 years. About 6 years ago, we were able to come together and appoint 4 elder couples to really for the first time kind of restore trust in leadership, which had taken a huge hit during the difficult years in the parish church. But that was a tremendous victory for the church. But in these last 9 years, just to give you an idea, with those 75 disciples, we've seen 127 people respond to the gospel and become disciples. And then beyond that, we've seen 52 former members who had wandered from the church return to the church. So on average, about 20 people per year have been added to the church over these last 9 years that we've been there in Paris, which is it's exciting, it's inspiring. What were you
Well,
feeling
as
about that?
so many wonderful things, and I think back to our first few years in Paris, we just tried to figure out where was the best place for us to serve, and we started with the youth and family ministry again, and it just was an amazing journey for those few years that we served there until several of those students became campus students. And now in Paris we have about 55 students in our campus ministry. When we first arrived, there were 0. So just to see that, and then we went from teen ministry and helped train some people who have valiantly continued to serve, and so many of our families that really step up and just give their all to seeing our teens in Paris become Christians and our campus
I
ministry.
wanted to say that I think of the 45 teens that have gone through the church and moved on through their teen years, 40 of the 45 have become Christians, which is, that's so important to every parent to see their child have a chance while they're still in that age and stage in life to respond to the gospel. What were you going to say?
Yes, and even if they don't become Christians during the teen years, we don't give up hope, and we continue to love and provide family for them, regardless of whether they've made a decision for Jesus yet or not. I think that's super important, that we just stay family and stay hopeful and prayerful for those who are not yet disciples.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Parish Church, our membership now is about 230 disciples. And so we have a couple of other stories we'd love to tell about that, but this is a story of the Parish Church and kind of finding its vibrancy once again, and some of our plans now going forward. We'll talk more about that. I want to tell the story about what we kind of stumbled across and discovered together in the
Founded in the scriptures.
But it's that verse in Acts chapter 17 that talks about God setting the times and places. And a lot of times we apply that to the eunuch, Ethiopian eunuch type of seeker that was kind of randomly placed. But clearly God was working in the life of the Ethiopian, but also in Philip's life. And we use that story, but I think we discovered as we were trying to consider how do we help the Parish Church become more outward focused, how do we do that? And I think Carol and I just kind of wrestled with the thought, well, if God is that involved, if God is working so significantly in the life of two random strangers, isn't God certainly also at work in the lives of the people that we're actually connected to, that we're currently involved with? We call it our entourage, the people that are in our lives right now. And we started to observe with eyes of faith that everybody has a certain number of relationships right now in their life. Let's start looking at those relationships. Obviously, our physical family members and
our co-workers and neighbors
and extended family members and our students or our colleagues, all these kind of things. Let's start looking at those people, praying for those people, and start hopefully seeing God moving in their lives. And the 127 people, obviously the 52 people that returned to the church that were wandering and came back, they were all in relationship with other disciples already.
Yes.
But of the 127, over 100 of those were already known to our members. There were, 20 or 25 people that were met just as we go, that were randomly met through cold contact evangelism. But over 100 of those conversions over the last 9 years have been, our sons and daughters, moms and dads,
Brothers and
sisters, long-standing friends, classmates,
co-workers.
And that just has opened our eyes, and we've never really had a year where we haven't found people in our existing entourage that God has not been working in their lives, and that we're open to the gospel. What did you want to add?
It's just such a beautiful thing to just love the people around you. We live in an apartment building in Paris, and even during COVID, when we were in lockdown and we were not allowed to travel more than a kilometer from our actual apartment front door, we just enjoyed sweet fellowship with our neighbors who are not disciples but are our dear friends. And basically everybody in our building, we would have just a Saturday evening dinner outside behind the building together, have a glass of wine and eat some good French food and talk until past midnight together. We celebrate our birthdays together. We serve each other. We help each other do things like water plants and take care of our dog. And really, it's just such a blessing just to love the people around you, to be a friend to your neighbors. And that's really what our brothers and sisters in Paris really do. They, most of them as well, live in apartment buildings, and we just try and love the people around us and to serve them and be their friend and to be a light. And when that light shines bright in the lives of our family and friends, it draws them to Jesus.
Absolutely.
And it makes evangelism so much more fun. We have become a friend to sinners. And I really love that part of our mission work together, is just to continue to be great hosts and hostesses to our friends and neighbors and our community.
Yeah, thanks.
Now, as John shared earlier, over the past almost decade, we've seen about 52 former members come back to the parish church and rejoin the membership here. And I just want to highlight one couple, Franck and Valérie Gros-de-Bois. Franck showed up at church a couple times, and I just remember how happy we were all to see them again. They had been absent from the church for about 9 years. And I remember coming back to Paris and not seeing them, and I was just so sad. So when we saw Frank, we just wanted him to feel welcomed. And we invited him to spend time with us. And he came over. His wife couldn't make it that night because of a prior commitment. But we just started to talk about his journey and his wife's journey over the past 9 years, and where they had gone to different churches, and just their need for deeper fellowship. I think I remember more than anything, they missed the friendships that they had in the Paris church. Valerie had helped plant the church in southern France, and they were just this amazing couple. Yeah. And so over the course of a few months, we got together and talked regularly, and I just had so much respect for their humility, their desire to resolve any possible conflict whatsoever that might have happened with their departure particularly, and they were just quick to resolve all those issues. And since they've been back in membership, Frank is going to school to develop his teaching skills and his Bible knowledge. He's a part of our teachers group and helps preach on Sundays. And Valerie, both of them have become super, super good friends of ours. And their son, Thomas, started coming to church. He was absent with them for those 9 years during his teen years, and started coming to campus meetings during COVID last summer, and was just baptized this past January, and it is just a real delight to the campus students and our campus ministry in Paris.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
We want to tell you the story about our School of Missions. I know you have in Boston in the New England churches NESM, which is the New England School of Missions. So we
have
started
ESSM.
ESSM, which is the European School of Missions. And about 3.5 years ago, we met with our European church leaders, and we together kind of formulated a conviction and this vision to train next generation future leaders of our churches. We have, in Europe, we have so few people in supported ministry roles. We have tons of volunteers and many gifted disciples throughout our churches. We have in our 15 churches, we have about 1,050 members in all, spread over 8 different nations. But we really were in need of developing leadership in our churches, and so imitating the Boston example, we started our School of Missions. And that first year, as we sent the message out to our churches, a little bit like Acts chapter 16, where Timothy was commended by his local church. We asked for churches to commend young next generation people that they had a vision for, that had the respect and the confidence of the local church, to send them. And we meet 4 times a year for a total of 15 days, and then we have sessions in between those times. But so we meet and we go through a very similar curriculum that you would have in the New England School of Missions. But wow, it's been so exciting to see this special opportunity for fellowship and leadership development. What's it meant for you?
I think the collaborative spirit of the Western European churches has been just so inspiring. Of course, working on a project like this together for the future of our churches in Western Europe has just really knitted our hearts. We already had our European Bible School where we met regularly a couple times a year. Disciples would come from Germany and France and Switzerland and Italy and Belgium, and really from all over for the European Bible schools. But to have this European School of Missions, where these young men and women that have become Christians in the last 7, 8, 10 years, to come together and to have this community, and the majority of our teachers have come from Europe, although we're so grateful for our international teachers that come and help us as well, and to build this program. And this August we will be graduating. How many?
22 of those students. Which is really exciting. Of those 22 graduates, 12 over the last few years have explored supported ministry in one of our churches, and now I think of all the students, we've seen 16 now that have explored supported ministry in our churches. We're really trying to prepare these young people to serve. Obviously, they've all been serving in their local ministry and developing kind of their heart to serve, but also with this cohort of other young next generation Christians to build these ligaments, these bonds, these friendships over the last 3 years. It's really been amazing.
Yeah, and just maybe a couple names. We have Bruno and Mago Inek, who are entering the full-time ministry in the parish church. We have Camilla and Davide in Milan. We have Nick, who's been in Berlin serving there, and Colin Urbani from the Boston church, who's in Munich in the ministry serving there. Elena, who's originally from Geneva, and her husband, who's from Scandinavia. They've just started serving in the Geneva Church of Christ. And Carlos, who's still in Spain and helping with the church there in Madrid. It's really been an inspiring a time in our lives to help start this church with our colleagues here in Western Europe, and then to see this flame and this heart to spread the gospel in Europe with our younger brothers and sisters.
Yeah, it's really been exciting.
We've seen a couple marriages too.
Yeah, we've seen 5 of those 5 marriages amongst that group, which is kind of a side benefit. That's been exciting. But we will graduate them here next week in Geneva or in the Swiss Alps. In the Swiss Alps.
I mean, can you get closer to God than in the mountains of Switzerland? I think not.
And then we're adding another 20 students will join ESSEM. So it's just a great project. We solicit your prayers there, and thank you for the example
Yes.
of the Boston Church for this school,
Yes.
School of Missions.
I just want to share a brief story of faithfulness during COVID times. We have a sister named Danila. She and her husband Frederic. Frederic is a part of the board and also takes care of the finances in the parish church. But Danila shared her faith over the years with a co-worker named Lucy, who's Brazilian and married to a Frenchman named Mathieu. And Danila herself is Italian, married to a Frenchman. And they both teach foreign languages in Paris. And Lucy and her husband, Mathieu, studied the Bible and were baptized during COVID. And they have been sharing their faith with everything and everybody that lives and moves and breathes. They have just been incredible examples, their heart and their zeal to share the gospel. And just this past week, they saw their son, Gustavo, baptized, and Gustavo's girlfriend, Leah. But a couple months back, Angela, another co-worker that Lucy invited, she was baptized, and currently they still probably have 5 or 6 of their friends and family members that are studying the Bible since their conversion. So we're just so proud of them, and I think that's
Amazing.
Again how God moves through entourage evangelism.
Absolutely. Our partnership with the European Mission Society, which you guys here in Boston, you so generously support, our 3-pronged strategy in the EMS is to strengthen existing churches, which that's a lot of what Carol and I have tried to do and been doing here over the last 9 now on our 10th year, as well as sending U.S. missionaries to go and strengthen other churches beyond the parish church. So that's a big part of what we're doing. The second and a strategic emphasis is to train European leadership. We've done that as we've tried to help to appoint elders and
In Paris, Milan.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work there, but also our School of Missions with next generation leadership and our work with leadership teams around Europe. So that's a big emphasis of our EMS strategy. But now the exciting part is the third part of planting new churches.
Yay.
And so it's been a long time in Europe since we've started churches, and officially here from the parish church, we have been dreaming about planting a church from Paris, and really all the French-speaking churches for some time now. And this summer, we've officially inaugurated this Bordeaux church planting, and we've had a first wave of disciples that moved there in the midst of COVID last fall, and the remainder of the initial church plant group are arriving this month. So we have a group of 15 disciples in Bordeaux, France, which is in the southwest corner of France, about a 5-hour drive from Paris. But it's a beautiful city, and there's some wine.
In the middle of wine country. It's
pretty good
so
wine there,
beautiful. And some really inspiring stories there, because Etienne and Annick, who have been there actually just right before COVID started, Le Neveu, they moved down there, and then COVID hit, and so they were kind of stuck down there. But then a young disciple from Georgia came along, Zach Campbell, and he was doing some research work there, and so the 3 of them were there for a short time. And then Christian and Munja Vaillant, they quit their jobs from Paris and moved down there with their 2 children. One's still a teen, one's a campus student now, and they just set up their own bakery restaurant. He's a boulanger and makes great bread, which you would expect in France. And the church actually meets in their restaurant on Sunday mornings. And So we're so grateful for the four of them, plus Etienne and Annick, who have been there a while. Just moving there this summer is Frédéric and Marie-Bé Boucher, and they were a part of the initial church planting group in Paris back in the 80s, and then went back and to the U.S. in the early 2000, I think it was like 2003, 2004. And they've moved back. Mary Bay's retired. Frédéric is going to be working still. And we are so excited to have them back in France and helping with the Bordeaux mission. But their daughter Emily and her husband Wolf have also moved to Bordeaux this summer. In fact, they were the first ones to want to come after Olivia moved to Paris with her husband Blake. And Lucy, who is now a part of the Beam Mission Fund, is living in Paris. So all the Boucher girls, their three daughters and their parents, are now in France. And Wolfgang and Emily are there with their two young children. Matthias is 4 and Daphne is I don't know, she's still a baby, a year and a half or so. Anaëlle is there. She's a student and been there for the last year. Jean-Daniel is coming from Brazzaville in Africa, Kinshasa. He's coming from Kinshasa, and his parents are in the full-time ministry there, but he's coming to study in Bordeaux. Daniel Gifford, who was actually born in Paris, his parents were a part of the original mission team to Paris. He's moving there, and he's going to be studying as well, and we're so excited to have you back. He was in Paris with us for about a year. Laurence Yuan, her two boys have grown, are in college now, and she's moving back to her hometown. She was from Bordeaux, and she's excited to be a part of that planting as well. And then there's a sister, Naomi, from Nouvelle-Calédonie, who is also coming to study. And God just keeps bringing us people, and maybe you're one of them. Who knows? But we're super excited to start this mission planting in Bordeaux and to see more future plantings in France in the years to come.
Yeah. I want to close this out here with just a spiritual thought. It comes out of Luke chapter 11, verse 34, and goes all the way to 36. I'll just read the beginning of this. It says, "Your eye is the lamp of your body. When your eyes are healthy," that's the New and Improved translation, or generous, or when your eyes are good, some translations, your whole body also is full of light. But when they are unhealthy or not good or stingy in some translations, your body also is full of darkness. And it's, I guess the illustration Jesus was making is, how do you see this cup, this glass? Do you see it as being half empty or half full? And he says it matters how you see the world. I mean, it matters what your worldview is, and especially it matters how you see God, how you see God to be. Do you see God as someone, as a being who's stingy, that he's not out for our good? You know, a lot of the work we do as we get into our Bible and as we pray to God and develop this relationship with God is to acquire this healthy view of God, to start to see God as who he is, and God is so good, but he is generous. Yes. And Carol and I, you know, sometime back we were reading through the book of Luke, and we stumbled across this theme of generosity, and I'd encourage all of you to consider this theme of generosity at some point. But it really struck me as we kind of wrestled through it together and thought about how important it is that we see God as being good and generous. And we've talked. You want to add something right there? You're riveted. You're riveted. But I think three areas that Carol and I have tried to evaluate, kind of our own personal level of generosity, is first of all, to be generous with our prayers for other. I think there's a huge theme throughout the book of Luke of Jesus inciting us, compelling us to be prayerful, to be faithful in prayer, to ask, to knock, to continue to persevere in prayer.
I think one of the favorite aspects of our relationship, what I love so much, is John and I go for an almost daily prayer walk for about an hour to get some exercise, but also to connect to each other and to connect with our God. And we've seen God answer so many prayers.
So
and
many.
It's really built our faith that we serve a good, good Father.
To be generous in our prayers for others and to continue. It's not so much about communication with God. It's much more about communion with God. It's about developing this fellowship, this consistency with God. But Carol and I have, as she expressed, committed to being generous with our prayers. That a big part of our lives is praying for the people we love, praying for the people that are around us. It's super important.
Yes, and I love how often, especially you take the time to pray for every member of the church in Paris. And I know you did that back in Boston too. And you really do see God move when you're praying for people. We've seen people healed of cancer and so many loved ones become Christians, I think, because of our prayers, of our prayers and God's goodness.
And the second area where I think we can demonstrate our generosity is to be generous with our encouragement of others. Once upon a time in our church culture, I think many of us were maybe motivated by duty or by obligation or whatever sense that we had, that we felt about what we needed to do. And I think, in today's world, especially with all of us and all of you who volunteer in some ways, have what motivates us is not duty so much, and certainly not obligation so much. There's maybe an element of that, but it's much more the encouragement that we receive from God, from the Scriptures, and from one another. And I think we all need it. Life is hard. To persevere in the ministry of Jesus is challenging. The world, crises upon crises, we all need a little bit more encouragement. And I know that Carol and I, we really try to season every conversation with encouragement, to find the good, to seek the best, to assume the best in one another. What do you think about that?
It just makes life so much sweeter when you can develop this mindset of believing each other's full of goodness, and to catch each other doing good, to point it out, to build each other up as the Scriptures tell us to do, to just really delight in that, delight in being a source of encouragement, a breath of fresh air, to bring good news to each other. That's encouraging as well, just to be generous with good news and generous with encouragement.
Yeah, thanks. And then the last area of generosity is to be generous with our forgiveness. The fact is, as Christians with our huge extended family, and the longer you live and function in Christ, the more relationships you accumulate along the way. We need to become really, really good at, first of all, forgiving other people, but we do sin a fair bit against one another, so also really good at apologizing and taking responsibility and for asking for forgiveness. But I think the older I get, the more I'm convinced that the true heart of God is to be generous with mercy and forgiveness, to overlook the offense. The truth about me is, I'm the worst of sinners. I know that to be true, and to be surprised or offended when I'm sinned against at different time, that's just all about the journey anyways. So to live and function in a healthy way, if our eyes are good, if we're seeing the world in in a healthy way, in a generous way, then we need to really strive to be generous with our forgiveness and mercy. Any last thoughts?
Oh, this is such a big topic for us as Christians, right? Because we've been forgiven so much, and we've been given so much. And I think for me, it's continuing to, when someone hurts me, is to continue to first take the plank out of my own eye before I try and remove the speck. And I think so often we think somebody else has the plank, but that's not what Jesus says. He says we're the plank carriers. And when you have a plank in your eye, you're going to poke somebody else's eye out. And that's been a really valuable lesson for me, to take the time when I'm hurt to say, what happened? What was it? What even maybe happened to me? Not just say what's wrong with them, but to know maybe there's a backstory there that they reacted so strongly, and to patiently demonstrate curiosity and love and get to know that person a little bit better, and to be quick to forgive the way Jesus is so quick to forgive me, to forgive us. And I know I'm happier that way, for sure, when I'm quick to forgive. And I know that I have less stress in my life when I have less things to mull over in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, because learning to let go and learning to apologize. I'm just so grateful for your example, even in the last year or so, and being quick to apologize and to be very detailed in your apology. That really helps me in our marriage.
Thanks. So, how do you see it? Jesus says it's really important how you see that cup. Is it half full or half empty? Do you see with the right kinds of eyes, good and generous, or stingy and not so healthy? Jesus calls us to a generosity that obviously he's demonstrated to us because of his love and acceptance, and our Heavenly Father shows us every single day. That's enough for now.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Wish we could be with you.
And we maybe next time we can see you face to face. But we love you and the whole Boston Church very much.
Bye.